Right, we're rolling. On this podcast, we'll be talking about different areas of business and all things marketing. My name is Dave Doyle.
And I'm Dave Alton. This is Social Antics, another marketing podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Social Antics, another marketing podcast. Thanks for joining us. This is week 18, I think. Week 18, Dave? Dave is looking bewildered at me there. He hasn't a clue.
No idea. It's another week.
Another week. How
I barely know what day of the week it is at the moment with COVID. It's the same four walls. Can't do anything about it.
Ticking clock kind of above you in the room. Kind of
Oh God, I was there on, was it Saturday morning or something like that, where it was announced that the EU were temporarily pulling the AstraZeneca vaccine. I was like, fuck's sake. Here we go again. Like, this is just, it's unbelievable. It's just depressing news story after depressing. And then that poor girl over in the UK and the protests also. It's just like one after the other. It's just a series of depressing news stories at the moment, but look, we drive on.
I think it was a good chat last week with Dinny, talking all things influencer marketing, content creation, social media. I think it was actually really interesting to hear from someone on the ground doing it as well. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I thought it was great. Look, the guy clearly knows what he's doing, very, very successful at what he does, and I think it's interesting when you kind of, and I probably had a bit of a cut at a couple of points in terms of more the concepts and the phrases and stuff like that around personal branding influencer.
thought you were quite reserved. Actually, I was waiting for more, to be honest.
I know. I took it out of my students the following day. I was like, I was on a podcast like that last night, and this is what I wanted to say.
No, I think in fairness, we got a great reaction throughout the week of people that listen to it that would be involved in social media and stuff as well, and getting his point of view on things and how he actually runs social media. But it was really, really interesting to hear the whole side of influencer marketing, because Dennis in particular would use it for his business, and probably a lot more than we would maybe engage in it. So I think it was interesting to hear someone that actually works with it day to day. Yeah,
no, entirely. And I think the one thing actually that I took the most out of it was when he was talking about running I'm not forgetting this wrong now, but Miss Tralee or something like that, or whatever it was. And he was talking about the culture which supported that event. Yeah. So like the idea of like all the people involved supporting each other, it being a very, very collegiate atmosphere, and it being kind of I hate using the word authentic, but it being some sort of real. It wasn't really false, and that obviously comes across then in social media. If people are actually genuinely having a good time and they're promoting these events via that, it obviously makes it becomes across as a lot more real rather than kind of fakeness associated with influencer marketing. And that was the real point. That
did it change your opinion to maybe look at influencer marketing for campaigns going forward?
No, I have no problem. No. Just to be absolutely clear, I have no problem using influencer marketing for campaigns if it is viable. My point is that if you have, there has been a kind of a rebuttal towards influencer marketing in the last kind of 12 to 18 months. I think that's
more so, like, I think you have to go back to what I was saying last week. You have to break down maybe influencers, break them down into their categories. It's become washed with the beauty style of stuff, and the fashion, and that's become the influencer go-to almost, that people think when they think influencer, that's what they think. But there is a lot more to it. And as I said last week, I'm much more of someone, finding someone that's more influential, in the industry that you're in, so, if we're looking at something and maybe something you work with in terms of B2B and tech, who would you look to promote that? It wouldn't be someone that's involved in makeup or fashion.
No, that'd be that's absolutely true. But for me, it's regardless of the industry, it comes down to the person in and of itself and what they do. And that's why the point that I'd be very strong about is that the influencer, and again, one of the main reasons why that industry is falling to pieces is because it's called people don't like being sold to. But the point that I was making was that if you are a content creator and you're renowned for your content rather than being renowned for being an influencer, then you are going to be more impactful in terms of the audience that you're going to go after, and you come across as more genuine and real because you're actually creating this content. If you're someone who people are just using as an ad pony to just pump their own stuff out into the world without any credibility or trust being built between you and them just because you've got a large audience. That to me doesn't work anymore. People aren't going to be sold to. With the celebrities it's different because that's celebrity endorsement. Ignore the term influencer. It's celebrity endorsement, and that has always worked for a variety of different reasons, and there's loads of studies to back that stuff up. It's the mid-tier guys that can either be very, very effective or they can be very, very damaging. And I think it's the guys that are really, really good at content creation, and people are fans of that content in and of itself rather than fans of the person, shall we say. Now, I know those are obviously linked, I suppose, but ultimately that's what you need to look at when you're talking about influencer marketing. This idea of people going around the place looking for freebies saying, I'm an influencer. Yeah. People are going to get sick of that. It comes across as very disingenuous. And I don't think it's good for the marketing industry in and of itself because it makes us seem even more bloody kind of false than we already are. And let's call it spade a spade. Marketing is a very, very false game in terms of the communications that we're trying to present.
Don't walk us out of a job yet. Huh? Don't walk us out of a job yet.
No, that is oh my God, I'm an academic. I'm allowed to get away with it. But like that kind of stuff has to be looked at clearly. And again, you're absolutely right. Splitting up between macro level influencers, micro level influencers, meso level, and that's not just in terms of the numerics, in terms of what you're trying to reach, but you need to break down.
Well, I think you said it there. Like I think small businesses can look into influencers. We're going to call it that. That's what it is. But you have to kind of take it for what it is. But look into someone, as you said, that's content creating, and it doesn't have to be approaching someone that has 50,000, 100,000, even 20,000. Go lower again, because realistically, they're actually real followers. They're not, something that's been built up over time of a campaign I worked on 2 years ago and got me a whole load of followers. It's not fake in that sense, but in terms of following someone that might have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, but they're actually people that are interested in what they're doing, so whether it's, a little foodie in locally, or a blog site maybe that's just putting up something like, we'd have here in Cork, we'd have loads of blog sites that are putting up something purely out of the fact that they just want to promote Cork as a place.
Or
every city has it.
Go even more granular than that. If I was the owner of a coffee shop in the morning and I wanted to promote myself to, let's say, the up and coming, the students, shall we say, not now obviously because they're all not on campus, but if when things go back to normal, go into Instagram, type in coffee into your search feed, narrow that down to a location of kind of UCC, look at the top 100, let's say, people who've posted a photograph of coffee or lunch or whatever the case may be, who are students, and then you send them a direct message and basically go, if you come down, take a snap of your food here, try it out. If you like it, and post it up online. Either way, we'll give it to you for free. That's genuine, because you're just giving someone a lunch and people aren't going around and say, oh, look at me, I'm an influencer. It's genuinely looking for people to just come and review your product, basically. Do you know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that. I think you need to... Influencer marketing in and of itself is kind of, it's a complete misnomer, because we always just exclusively talk about influencer marketing, whereas in actuality, like we always say, you've got to go back to the business and the objectives that you have of your business. So if you look at Mercedes, for example, Mercedes use influencers to reach a younger audience that they can't reach because they don't have access to them. They can't buy that audience anymore like they used to with television. So therefore, by them partnering with photographers and getting those guys to create their brand assets and linking it back into their followers.
That was a great campaign, actually.
Hugely beneficial
for anyone
campaign.
That doesn't listen, basically, they gave away, was it five cars to fight.
One car.
No, but they landed 5 cars with 5 influencers, content creators I should say in this sense, and basically they were told them, go off, create content for a week or something like that, wasn't it? And basically whoever got the most engagement and reach and all this kind of stuff through their social from the content they created with the cars basically got to keep the cars.
Exactly, but ultimately that whole thing stemmed from the premise of they needed to reduce the average age of their consumer. They couldn't do it because it would come across as false, therefore they needed to partner with another brand, shall we say, or a group of people who have access to this audience and who can be, as I always say to my kind of students, they're conduits that allow you reshape your brand meaning, because if you have someone communicating things about your brand, that changes the meaning of your brand, because it's not being communicated by you, it's being communicated by someone else. So there's an amalgamation of brand meanings and stuff that goes on there. So again, going back to understanding the business case and then understanding the culture of people who you're trying to target, and then understanding the culture in relation to the influencers and how they exist and how they communicate, that to me is worth discussing and analysing, not just this concept of influencers. Do you know what I mean? And again, in that situation, They didn't say we partnered with 5 influencers on Instagram. They said we partnered with 5 photographers, because people followed these guys because they were photographers.
Yeah.
So again, that's what I'm talking about when it comes to content creation. Don't look at how influential someone is. Look at what they actually do and why people follow them, and use that as your basis to make decision on how you can work or partner with these people.
Well, I think when businesses go to approach, like, it's not as daunting as it might seem, when you're going on the more micro level of approaching someone. I'm personally, when it comes to my work, I'm not big into pumping someone with €500, €1,000 just to do a post. I have no interest whatsoever. I would rather go and cheekily message someone and say, "Here, are you interested in trying something?" And see what they come back with. All they can tell you is to fuck off.
It works. It works.
So, like, go or not even asking them sometimes. If there's a way you can reach them, or an avenue to get to them, or whatever it is. Basically, getting getting products to people for them to try it. You never know, they might share it.
But if you're doing that, you have to have a good product.
You do have to go. You have to be able to.
And you have to have a good brand to support it, because people aren't going to, in the same way that I would be critical of influencers and how they kind of operate, I would also be critical of brands who think that they have the divine right to partner with certain people who have good content. Because if you've got a terrible product, someone who's good at photography or someone who's good at making vlogs on food, they're not going to just partner with you on the basis that you're paying them. It's simple as that. You need to be in line. You need to be aligned with them and their audience as much as they need to be aligned with you and your audience. So again, that whole it's a very, very complex dynamic that happens in terms of influencer marketing. But it was good that we got into it last week, I think, a little bit with someone on the ground who obviously uses influencers quite a lot.
And one thing I like that he mentioned is, and we've talked about before in terms of, I think we had an episode there on agency or in-house, basically in terms of content creation or running your social, but then he talked about that the business he works with, the motor company, basically gives him free reign to try things, try out different, and obviously look, it's not that it's free, these things are costing money, whether it's time or it's actual input in terms of money. But I think having someone in your business that's creative and giving them the freedom to do a bit of trial and error or testing is always beneficial. I think, if you're putting someone in that role to do it. So it's great to be actually able to hear, and we would hear a few businesses that definitely would look for someone to come in and take a grasp of, whether it's social or whether it's content creation or whatever it is. But I think it's great when the business actually does it, and to be able to hear that. And it's not like he's working with a cheap product.
No, it's a bloody expensive product.
It's expensive. So, like, it's big decision making, so if you get that wrong, it's a big cost to a business.
Yeah, 100%. And I get, like, it's a bit straight. Like, look, it's the difference between marketing and sales, right? No one is going to buy a BMW based on the strength of the marketing of the dealership.
Yeah,
there's a huge other ecosystem going on there, and ultimately it's a sales.
There has to be a Del Boy.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, in terms of this week, an exciting pop up for you in terms of news.
So I thought what was interesting is that, so you mentioned a couple of weeks ago the idea of Airbnb, and they were reducing their marketing spend by a half, basically. They said, no, we're more focused on kind of brand building and stuff like that. So interestingly enough, then it just kind of it came up during the week when I was doing my research for the episode for a change.
20 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So basically, it said that Just Eat in 2020, so 2020 accounts basically showed that Just Eat increased its marketing investment by about 158% to about 369 million euros. To grow their market share. Now, interestingly enough, even though they've increased it by 50%, partially on account of COVID as well, as a percentage of their overall revenue, it's down to about 18% of overall revenue from 34%. So even though they're increasing, it's decreased as a ratio of their overall revenue. And I think this is really, really interesting, because the problem with the Just Eats and the Deliveroos and the Uber Eats of this world is that they've never made a profit. And therefore they are now trying to scale their business in a different way, whereby they can generate excess revenue whilst decreasing the percentage of marketing spend constantly. And this is a good starting point in that. Now, ultimately, they still lost money. They posted revenues of about 2.4 billion euros. EBITDA grew by 18% to about 217 million, but the company registered 151 million, 1 million loss, and that's obviously in conjunction with their 5.8 billion acquisition of takeaway of Grubhub. So there's so it's just interesting to kind of see the dynamic that's happening in that particular industry. And then in conjunction with that, then it also just to look at some of the other competitors within that particular space. Domino's basically said that they are also going to be increasing their marketing spend in 2021. Last year they posted sales of £1.3 billion, which is a rise of about 11.4% compared to 2019, and that basically represents a profit of about £100 million, which is the complete opposite to Just Eat, which is constantly posting a loss. So it's quite interesting with the kind of the takeaway wars, if you want to call it that. A lot of the more established brands out there, like your Domino's, are posting a profit, and they're finding a way to make this work, whereas a lot of the marketplace apps are still hugely struggling to make an impact in this particular area in terms of profitability. Their value of is obviously still astronomical, but in terms of their actual posting a profit, they're still really, really struggling. So that business model, and we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Deliveroo, them being put under pressure in terms of how they're treating their employees as gig workers and stuff like that. So it's going to be a very, very interesting few years, I think, especially next year when, even though they're saying that they're going to increase their revenue year on year, I can't imagine if we come out of COVID that they are going to have as much revenue next year as they would have done this year, or I struggle to see it anyway.
No, definitely. Like, it's simple, really. People are at home, people are ordering. You know, like, of course they're going to be making money, but in terms of next year, I think people are just going to be dying to get back out, especially for the first couple of months. They're going to want to get out of home. They're not going to be cooking. They're going to be going out, trying the restaurants, pubs. So you are going to see more of a surge back into probably the drink sector, and that's what we'll hear about. Now, whether it's massive profit in terms of years before, it might not be, but it's going to be news because it's a surge in revenue for that industry.
Yeah, no, 100%. I just think that I think that whole industry is fascinating in and of itself, because again, it's in the kind of they fall into the realm of businesses that don't make sense logically. Like, I mean, logically, if you're looking at a business and it's constantly posted a loss, that business model doesn't make sense. But there's obviously a land grab that they're looking for, which is going to occur over the next 5 to 10 years, which will make them extremely profitable into the future. But at the moment, they're still spending a huge amount on marketing, advertising, obviously, if we've just kind of spoke about, and they're still not getting to profitability. And this is on the foot of them charging restaurants an absolute fortune to actually use their product. Like, if you're using Just Eat, your commission that you're paying them is somewhere between 25 and 30%. Now, anyone who's in the restaurant space knows that that's a big chunk of your margin.
Huge, yeah.
It's huge. So there's kind of even though it means that it's kind of for want of a better word, a lot of restaurants see it as kind of free money, in that it's customers that they wouldn't have had otherwise. I think as consumers start gravitating more and more to these marketplace apps, it is starting to eat into those companies' profit now, because opposed to previously you ring in your Chinese and them taking all the profit from that, you're now giving 30% of it to your Deliveroo or your Just Eat or whatever.
You're battling with the marketing team for Deliveroo, because your company is now missing out if you're not on the app. So you have to take the loss of that 30%, as you said, to gain the customers that you never had.
Yeah, and there's a cannibalization effect there, right? Because you've now got an intermediary, Just Eat, that isn't making any money. The profitability of the restaurant is decreased, so you're kind of wondering and you're looking, going, why? What's the benefit of the intermediary? Do you know what I mean? You're kind of looking at it and going, from a business perspective, from the consumer's perspective, it obviously makes sense in terms of choice and stuff like that. And look, some of the technology, like, you remember a number of years ago where you'd ring someone up and you go, oh, well, where's my delivery, kind of a thing. Like, Just Eat don't actually have a tracker, Deliveroo do. So it's just interesting to see how that industry is going to develop over the next number of years. And as well as that too, hugely competitive. Like Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Just Eat, massive competition going on in that particular sector, massive marketing spend, and still none of them are really posting a profit. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, I would imagine, like, when you talk there about the costs of these businesses running, like, you know, the Deliveroos and Uber Eats, the majority of their spend is on nothing but marketing and advertising.
And then you've got ancillary spend then as well, obviously, so customer support will obviously be quite important there. But yeah, no, mainly that is the cost.
Like when it comes to the sales side of things, like, I know from dealing with Deliveroo before, you will have one person and they will look after Cork if it's big, but literally like, you take a bit smaller, they'll take in half a Munster kind of thing. Do you know? Yeah. So that's one person, and to be honest, that's one person that has to deal with all those restaurants when things go wrong, and then it's only passed on to customers.
I know, and I've heard it from people who've used it that like if they want to change their menu, it's a struggle.
Oh, stop! It's a nightmare. Like they are getting better in terms of giving the customer a profile that you can log in and do it. But no matter what, like you're ringing, giving out to this one person. And realistically, as we've talked before, in terms of gig economy and people changing and swapping jobs and the high turnover of employment, I think in the space of about 3 years of dealing with Deliveroo, a restaurant I used to work with, I'd say I dealt with 3 account managers in the space of that 3 years, if not more. Like, so how are you meant to, they were always coming to me saying, we build up promotions and we'll do this over this time, and next thing, 3 months later you ring in and the person you're dealing with is gone, you're dealing with this person, and then you're back to square one again. So it's very, very hard, unless you're one of the big boys on Deliveroo, to make it impactful for your business, to jump in, and to be competitive with those companies.
Yeah, I know, entirely. And look, it's a straight, like, I always find these ones difficult. Twitter started kind of turning a profit recently enough, but I always find these kind of difficult ones to teach as well, because if you look at the kind of big tech economy at the moment, all the biggest companies are kind of posting, but with the exception of Facebook, Amazon, all of the kind of mid-tier companies, a lot of them are posting a loss. And it's very, very kind of difficult to explain to students, like, something that big worth this much is constantly posting a loss, has never made money. Their business model doesn't make sense from an economic perspective, but yet they're looking for a kind of a land grab in the future that is going to allow them to actually be profitable.
I think we've talked about it before in terms of Amazon. Like, wasn't it Amazon put like 90% or more or whatever
back into R&D?
Everything goes back in, so they actually don't make that much money at the end of the year in terms of profit, because they pump everything back into, as you said, research and development and what's the next big thing.
But with Amazon, with Amazon though, that strategy made sense, because that whole strategy was based around taking cost centers, so things that would be an expenditure on your balance sheet every year or on your profit and loss every year, and turning that into a revenue generator. So Amazon Freight is now a profitable element of Amazon. Now, Business 101 tells you that if you are an e-commerce store, you don't make money off of shipping. You lose a fortune. That's one of your main cost centers. So again, the R&D that they put into, and that Amazon put into things like freight, into cloud and so on and so forth, those are all to change those cost centers into profit or revenue making elements of their business. With Just Eat, they're not really investing in R&D. No, they obviously are, but not as much. It's all going into sales, marketing, advertising, and they're growing the business. People are using it, people like the product, but they're still not posting a profit. So where's the threshold? Do you know what I mean? Well, ultimately what you need is a couple of these players to die off, and for one or two of them to be left over, and for them to become dominant. But that's not good in another
sense as well, because like less competition, they'll put up the prices as well again, and they can't afford to go up
and they started off, Just Eat started off 8%.
Yeah.
And now it's up to 30%.
When I was dealing with Deliveroo, it was 30%. That's a huge chunk out. And the problem is, which I always found, is like, you'll chance your arm and you might throw an extra few cent on the menu to make up for the cost of it. Like, next thing you have customers saying, but sure, I come into the store and it's that price. Do you know? So you're battling with that in terms of different menu costs and customer service, then rules over all of it,
But something that I noticed recently, and it was only because, and look, it's the middle of lockdown. I'm feeling a bit sorry for myself. On top of me Netflix, me Disney Plus, and me Prime subscription, I subscribe to Deliveroo Plus, which basically gives you pay a tenner to Deliveroo.
I haven't heard of this.
Yeah, so you basically pay Deliveroo a tenner, and then all of your orders over a tenner, you get free delivery on it. Now, for the amount that I get Deliveroo,
that's what I was going to say, yeah.
That is I have turned a cost centre into a revenue-making enterprise in Dave Limited, basically, is what I've done there.
You'll have to write a blog.
Exactly, I'm telling you now. But the cheeky bastards, because I only got this, we say, last week, and I went in and I ordered whatever 13 quid, and I was expecting, okay, it's going to be 13 quid, and it came out 13 quid 50, and I was going, hang on here now, I'm paying these lads a tenner service charge. a service charge, and then they asked me for handling. I was there kind of going like, and that's not going to their drivers, like, that's going into the pot, like, do you know what I mean? That's a revenue element make of it. So I was kind of going like, I've paid you a tenner to be a subscriber, and you're still taking 50 cents in terms of subscriber. So again, as a business who's trying to sell to a customer, and I know like Deliveroo are the intermediary, but I'm the customer of wherever the shipper that I'm ordering from, the Chinese that I'm ordering from. for them to be selling back to their customer. Ultimately, someone gets on the phone to the business. Oh, there's a service charge there. It's got nothing to do with the business at all. It's all got to do
no
with...
matter what. And that was always my big issue when it came to issues from a customer service point of view, when you're dealing with the public, and there's an issue with their product that arrives or the food, and it's messed up, it's been chucked around, it's cold, there's something missing because maybe the Deliveroo driver got hungry on the way, I don't know. But no matter what, you are the person that's name is on the box. No matter what, you are the person that's in fault, even though it might not be your fault. And then I find that very hard when it comes to using a third party service, because you're putting the trust in them as well.
Yeah, no, entirely. And I've seen it now, and I don't know, because that's not my gig, I'm not in that game. But what I've kind of noticed is that, look, the takeaways get it right? Because they're used to doing deliveries, takeaways and stuff like that. But keeping the food warm. And even that goes down to the types of boxes that you're delivering the food in, the bags, and all that stuff is very important, because the amount of...
But I love they started getting a bit creative, so they started doing, like, you can get Ben and Jerry's ice cream. You can get drinks delivered as well.
You can order from Aldi, like.
Yeah, you can order from Aldi. So, like, it's... Fair play.
Oh,
like,
I'll tell you a story there now, right? Last Friday, I was absolutely exhausted after work. I'm sick of dealing with you, basically. And I went for a nap around 8 o'clock. I was shattered, so I fell down asleep on the couch.
Different Friday night to what you were.
I know. I usually woke up at about 5 to 10. The off license was closed. So I was like, "Fuck! What am I gonna fucking do here now?" Right. So I then trawled Deliveroo, basically looking for a restaurant that would sell beer, but preferably not at restaurant prices. Do you know what I mean? That would keep me going for the rest of the night. Anyway, I ended up finding a Chinese restaurant and some local Chinese beer. Anyway, got 6 bottles of that, and the 6 bottles arrived. And you know what else arrived?
A pack of the prawn crackers.
Prawn crackers as well.
Just thinking it'd be brilliant.
Absolutely delighted with myself, so I was. Oh, night mate. I had me alcohol and I had me prawn crackers as well. They
should do that. Every 5 bottles of beer you get a free
packet of prawn crackers. But no, look, it just shows you again. Look, these businesses, I think these apps, these marketplace apps, they are great for the consumer. They've opened up the whole market, but again, in terms of the business sense behind them, in terms of they're losing money, and also the restaurants are losing money because they've got to use these intermediary apps. It's difficult to see where the future is in this particular instance.
Interesting. I found a new feature coming out this week with LinkedIn, which I thought was actually fairly cool. Basically their whole company page and tab side of LinkedIn, they're basically going at it again to try and strengthen it, but it
is poor, actually. I don't like it at all.
It is getting a lot better, in fairness, and I love the fact that you can do a lot more with the phone now, which I thought was very limiting. Even not too many months and years ago, you couldn't do. You had to go onto the laptop to do everything you wanted to do with a company page on LinkedIn, which was really annoying. But no, in fairness, it's getting a little bit more. We've talked about it here. It's not that it's getting a little bit more informal and casual, but it's still got a certain style to it, which I do like. That the content on that suits LinkedIn. You're not being as fun and creative. No, some of the stuff you will put on that gets a great reaction, but it's funny how you keep some stuff to maybe Instagram stories that you won't put on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I've given my opinion on LinkedIn before. I don't like it.
You don't like it? Well, look, this might change your mind. So anyway, basically, there are a couple of new features coming up. Is lead gen forms to product pages.
Oh, how sexy!
Very sexy.
Lead gen.
Wait for the next one. Swipe up on LinkedIn stories.
Innovative.
It's, to be honest, I think that's going to come across all of them, because you also have the fleets over on Twitter as well, which I've been using a little bit. You're going to get a swipe up there as well. It's coming at some stage.
You're all getting confused by the different names for things across all the different platforms is starting to really, really fuck me off. Because especially if I'm lecturing,
I was just going to say, you're not selling the fact that you're a digital marketing.
No, but I'm lecturing. But it's just the fact that you're changing from a strategic perspective. It all makes sense. But I basically call them all stories, because that's essentially what they are.
The 24-hour one is stories, and then you have your posts.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's basically what it is. But they're all called different things, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ in heaven.
So anyway, for the LinkedIn, they do call it LinkedIn Stories, and basically they're going. What I do like, the main thing I saw was they're going to create a kind of a My Company tab, that's built in with the pages. So basically, if I'm a page admin and I'm creating content on LinkedIn on the business page, I can have like a recommend tool where I can suggest articles or posts that I've done basically to my business to the employees that have registered that are working at the company as content suggestions, and they'll basically be able to share it out. I think that's really, really beneficial if you have a big team on LinkedIn, to spread the word a bit further, because to be honest, the reach and impressions that you get from LinkedIn are actually fairly high. If you're consistent,
they are.
But you have to be consistent. If you're not consistent, you're dead in the water with it. It does take a time to build it up, but once you build it up and be consistent with LinkedIn, it's actually very good. And the other side of that then is they're actually going to bring in an analytics feature that will allow you to measure the reach and the impact that your basically the employee, the advocacy that they're sharing all your content.
That's clever.
You'll be able to follow the reach and impressions they get. So that you could actually probably play with that down the line. That you might do some sort of employee program where if you're sharing your content, incentives.
It's the TripAdvisor strategy where if you're a hotel, if your employees are mentioned in a positive light on TripAdvisor, they get a bonus. Yeah. It makes sense.
One for all voucher at the end of the month. Yeah. I think that's very clever, and I think definitely going down the route of pushing it depends on the industry you're working, but I am all for it. That if your company can spread the word for you, it looks really, really good on you.
Oh no, your employees are your advocates. It's something that's often omitted from your brand strategy, in that what your company, if you're saying we're a very, very sustainable company, and then you've got your mate who works at that company down the pub saying sustainable, you should see the office and the amount of paper that we go through. It kind of you're after spending millions on this campaign, and then all of your employees are ripping you to pieces in the background. The employees are one of the most important cogs in that marketing wheel that people often omit, I think.
But if you take this tool and you look at a company, like the big boys, that might have 200-300 people working for them, if they're all sharing the same article, look, the reach now you're after getting on that article, video, whatever it is, you can't pay for that. Going back to your basics of digital advertising, you can't pay for that.
So then the question is, and this is me getting very sort of academic and theoretical here now for a second, right? It's your personal profile.
Yes.
The company doesn't own it. It's your profile.
True.
So therefore, is this a form of kind of unpaid labour where 100%. you are using your employees' status, shall we say, within whatever community that they're in to promote your brand, and you're not rewarding them for that?
Well, if they want to share it on their own back, it's only a suggestion.
Well, that's the thing, because there's a lot of companies I know now, and rightly or wrongly so. Well, it's almost like it's an unwritten rule that we expect you to share to spread the good word.
I honestly think that comes in more when you go up the ranks. In terms of a company. Now, once again, depends on the industry, but take our industry in terms of marketing and branding. I would expect anyone working in marketing and branding in a company to be talking about their business. If they're if they're doing it right, I suppose.
Yeah. No, it's just an interesting point, more than that, because I feel like if you take a big company, teamwork.com for example, and though their employees sing from the rooftops about how brilliant that, and I know that they don't force their employees to do that. That's just part of the company culture the two lads have created, and they've done an incredible job at nurturing that company culture, which then results in this organic reach out from their employees, which again comes across as very, very genuine. I would just be skeptical, or I'd be very, very interested in terms of things like employment, labour law, all this type of stuff. If you own your own profile and you are using that profile to promote your business or to promote your employer's business, where is the reward for you in that? Now, with this analytics feature in terms of advocacy, maybe there's something that can be built in there, but I'm kind of, do you know what I mean? And companies take enough from employees to start off with,
once again, it's not, as long as it's not a forced thing, as long as they don't tell you have
to. It's never a forced thing. Yeah. It's always an unwritten rule.
And they can tell them to feck off just as easy,
I know, the case. Best of luck with your promotion next time around.
Any other exciting news pop up for you this week?
No, just going back to, we were speaking there the last couple of weeks about the importance of content and communicating certain messages and stuff like that, right? And I thought what was kind of important, and we've been speaking a lot recently about kind of woke marketing and societal issues and all that kind of stuff, and how brands are communicating these things in a kind of in a resonant way, shall we say. So two examples, one of them I was annoyed by, and the other one was just a really good example of good content marketing. They were both examples of good content marketing. I was annoyed with the outcome of one. So one is Lad Bible, and they're basically after relaunching their You OK Mate, spelled UOKM8 question mark, which is basically all around kind of
trying to visualize it in my head.
Exactly, yeah. So the kind of mental health scenario around men and stuff like that. Now, And I give the examples in one of my classes in terms of like one of the biggest killers of males under the ages of 35 is testicular cancer, and all testicular cancer advertising is terrible because people aren't going to consume. It's too much text. People don't know it doesn't resonate with people basically, and they avoid it. So therefore, a number of years ago, a campaign was launched with kind of Deadpool, basically, where they turned it into a kind of a comedy type thing. And it was brilliant because it actually spoke to that audience. And in the same way that there was kind of a stigma around kind of testicular cancer, and they overcame it with that particular campaign, the You OK Mate campaign is kind of doing the same thing. So they basically got Tyson Fury and Robbie Williams to basically do a kind of an interview, kind of an informal chat with each other about their own careers and whatever, to shooting the breeze, but then also talking about some of the struggles that they would have, speaking to two very different audiences in terms of fans of Tyson Fury versus fans of Robbie Williams and so on and so forth. But again, communicating and taking the curtain down by having real content that people are interested in. I think if you have the kind of the PSA or the public health announcement type thing when it comes to mental health, it doesn't destigmatize it at all because it comes across as, again, a kind of a public service broadcast. Whereas when you have people like Robbie Williams or Tyson Fury or whoever it is talking about this stuff, content. And again, I'm not advocating the certain issues with both of those people in terms of what they've done in the past and stuff like that, which we're not going to comment on, but just in terms of the content in and of itself, I think just really, really clever, and goes back to this whole idea that if you're communicating brand messaging and you're kind of looking to create content which resonates with a certain audience, you have to do it in a way which is consumable by that audience. If someone has an opportunity or a choice to choose between viewing a piece of content on mental health versus listening to a podcast on sport, and those are two of the choices that you have, then you have to make sure that the one on mental health is actually really, really good content in and of itself for people to consume it and for it to have the impact that it should have in terms of what they're trying to do. So no, I thought that was really, really good by Lad Bible, and I think, to be fair to them as a brand, I really like them as a brand, kind of on the Paddy Power, shall we say, side of advertising in terms of what they do.
Cheeky, tongue-in-cheek kind of a thing.
Absolutely, but at the same time, I think every now and then, at their heart, they do take kind of male health, shall we say, quite seriously, and their content in terms of how they promote that overall, I think, is very, 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 very strong. So the second one then, and this is the one that annoyed me, I'm probably going to get in trouble for this now as usual. So basically, Burger King on International Women's Day brought out a kind of they launched a number of tweets, which basically the whole kind of roundup was that women belong in the kitchen. Yeah, they
put out a tweet literally just saying that.
Yeah, but ultimately the overall, so there was a series of tweets, right?
But the main one was that, so that's what caught people's attention. Then you read the trade.
Yeah, but people didn't bloody read it. Yeah, that was the problem. But ultimately what they were doing is that we know the old misogynist or sexist kind of stereotype of the women belong in the kitchen. So they were using that tongue-in-cheek phrase to capture attention, which is what you need to do if you want your message to hit the right particular audience. And then what they were doing is that they were highlighting the issue of inequality in terms of, even though they say that women belong in the kitchen, when it comes to kind of executive chefs, there's a very, very low percentage of them are actually women in comparison to males. So they were trying to communicate that this is an issue and to try and address the issue in a certain way. And you had a lot of people kind of coming in and criticising them because they were offended by this. And I was kind of like, hang on here now a second. Half the time people are giving out that these issues aren't being raised at all and they're being forgotten about. You now have a big player in the market grabbing the audience's attention in a major way and trying to discuss critically the issues that go on in the hospitality sector as it relates to female chefs, and then you're giving out to them about the way that they've done it. And again, it goes back to, if you do the classic, if Burger King had come out and done a white paper on why there wasn't a lot of female chefs, do you think anyone would have? That wouldn't have grabbed attention. It wouldn't have gotten any press. It wouldn't have done so. Like it's this classic
they're using their voice that they have, which they're unbelievable on social media.
They're not Burger King. In fairness, I do like Burger King in terms of what they're doing, but I'm just very confused by people again. In terms of what do people want? People want to be kind of social justice warriors and coming out and saying, "Oh no, companies need to behave in a certain way." But then when the end goal, which is to raise awareness of a certain issue, and companies try and do that, then they criticize them saying, oh no, you're doing it in the wrong way. Well, we all know that if you were to do it in a kind of a diluted way, it wouldn't work.
Go back to when we talk about authentic content and real content and all, and keeping to your style and consistency and not doing something that's totally out of abnormal for what you would normally do. They took this, as you said, issue and promoted it in their 100% in their way. So their audience that would follow them, meant to be following them for their content that they enjoy consuming, that's what they did it for. But then, as you said, everyone else jumped on it. So they put out a one tweet, it's obviously going to grab attention, which, to be honest, if they put out a big ream of a text, no one would read it. Or they just, grand, like it, good luck. But the fact that they done what they do best, and they grabbed attention and then got you to read the rest. They had you hooked on the first one. Some people will say it was the wrong way of doing it, but look, that's their style. But it
grabbed it achieved the objective that it was meant to achieve. If they had
to read the tweet.
If they had released a white paper, done a big study, and done a load of press on it, it wouldn't have been placed anywhere. Yeah. The fact that they created an environment whereby a debate could actually take place, and by the way, you cannot have a debate about something as critical as inequality without offending someone. It's impossible. You just can't have any critical discussion without offending or disagreeing with someone. You as an individual don't have the right to go through life without being offended by something. Because people are going to have differing views to you. And in this particular case, it wasn't even that people had differing views to you. They are trying to do a good thing, and they were now shut off from doing a good thing. And it's just, I find it very, very frustrating. I'm doing a lecture on it there now tomorrow, and I'm going to be telling my students, don't be following the herd in terms of giving out and being offended by everything that goes out there, because it's not going to have an impact. The alternative was, if they did, I'll say it again, the white paper, or they had a conference on, or they sponsored something.
Big, LinkedIn article post.
Whatever. It doesn't make a difference what it would be. Do you know what that does? It's a nice box that you check at the shareholders meeting at the end of the year.
The woke marketing, they're hopping on the bandwagon to do something for the sake of it, just to look good. They took it one step further, basically. Yeah,
they tried to do something actually meaningful, as opposed to kind of going half the way there and not really have any impact. I would just kind of look, it just kind of shows you again the kind of hypocrisy of society nowadays, when, again, like, brands should be criticised because brands are horrible entities anyway. Do you know what I mean? We lie, we cheat, we steal. That's what marketers do. But every now and then within that ecosystem, a brand, whilst doing, like, trying to sell burgers, also does something good on top of that, and for them to be criticised because of it, I was just like, oh Jesus Christ. I don't know, I just didn't get why people had such an issue with it. Like, they have an issue with the phrase, but the phrase is out in the world anyway. People use that phrase. They didn't make it up.
What would have been funnier now, if imagine, like, you just see he'd be frog marched straight out if they were doing the scheduling or whatever, and they messed up the timing, and they just put out the first tweet and 5 minutes
forgot about the rest of it. Oh Jesus Christ! Yeah.
That's your career in social media out the drain.
And and you know what? To be fair to Bert, like, this was the thing as well.
But unlike, did you say they took it?
They put out a retraction. Yeah. Eventually, initially, from my understanding of the article that I wrote and a little bit that I researched on it. Initially they kind of explained what they were doing, which is what I think they should have done. We're making a bloody point here. Same as what was the one, Cream Egg, a couple of weeks ago, with the two blokes shifting the face off each other, and they had to do the exact same thing. To be fair to Burger King, at least they kind of came out and they said, no, this isn't a misogynistic point. We're making a bigger point here. Shut up and let us do our job with the audience that we have. But eventually they came back and they apologised and they retracted it, and I was kind of going, should have stuck to your guns, you know. And look, okay, like a lot of the press that was negative, but again, if you're talking about critical issues, you're going to get negative press around it. Simple as that.
You'd love to see the situation room, basically, when that happens, like, you know, when everyone's kind of bombarding.
Oh, the CMO got a call.
Basically, pull them all in.
The bat phone rang.
Like, imagine just seeing, like, what do we do? You know, I'd say there's, like, whatever about running a social media page for a local business, you know, or a national brand, but when you're Burger King, like, there's some serious pressure there in terms of, you know,
you're talking hundreds of thousands of messages just bombarding, like, and you see do you know,
I'll put the phone on silent.
I've seen it before, actually, Joe. You have they obviously have it in all their marketing, the war rooms, whatever. They have their sentiment analysis scales and what people are talking about, and you just see the red appearing on the screen and going, right, well, that's gone wrong, lads.
Who tweeted?
Yeah.
On the other side of things, I think it's kind of, it's not a similar story, but it's on the other side of the spectrum is Unilever, a small brand as well.
Very small brand. We're really about local businesses this evening.
We are, yeah. So look, for anyone that doesn't know Unilever, they basically own, I would be safe in saying everything. Like they own Dove,
Gillette and all them.
Yeah. So basically, they came out during the week and said that they're banning the word normal. That's what they're getting rid of. Okay.
Excellent.
It's basically they're getting rid of it from their beauty products, and they're going down this whole kind of inclusive drive kind of to promote that side of stuff. But basically, the word normal is getting rid of anything to do with beauty, personal care. They've also decided that, which to be honest, it's a little too late once again, that they're getting rid of the airbrushing. That they're totally banning airbrushing on any of their marketing and advertising.
Yeah, no problem with that.
But also they've come out and said that they're getting rid of it. They're not going to be using any influencers or content creators that use airbrushing as well. So they're going a little bit of a step further.
Fair, yeah.
Basically, they done a study of 10,000 people across 9 countries, and they found that 7 in 10 people believe using the word normal on packaging. So obviously, this is for normal hair, normal this, normal bodies. Basically,
do people actually? I've never seen that on anything.
This is a big thing during the week I've seen. Yeah. So basically, that it has a negative impact when you see the word normal, and that rises to 8 in 10 when you look at the age category of 18 to 35. So they've come up with this whole new, I think they call it positive beauty strategy, which aims, this was the tagline they used, to do more good, not just less harm. I had to read that 3 or 4 times to make sure it wasn't written wrong.
They have to do less.
Yeah. Do more good, not just less harm.
I swear to God, if one of my students handed up, I would be what? Well, no, I wouldn't. I can't smack them. Just to be absolutely clear, I would not hit one of my students.
I'd say
to be absolutely clear, just like public service announcement. That would not happen. I would be in serious trouble if I did that. But it may impact on their grade.
So basically, what else did they say? That obviously the whole PR side of them came out as well, and they're also doing a health and well-being drive, and they're going to regenerate 1.5 million hectares of land, forest, oceans by 2030. Usual,
sustainability stuff,
supporting the global ban, and all this kind of came out with it. But yeah, look, it's interesting to see that to be honest, it's a little too late. It was just like a bit of a PR grab, that they're banning.
Well, if they're actually doing it, no, look, airbrushing, get rid of it. It's all the studies show airbrushing.
It's not something that should be news, really.
No, it's kind of look, but at least they're doing it. Most other brands aren't doing it, so no, I've no problem with that. The word normal thing, that's a bit weird to me. I've never actually, I don't have an opinion of it because I've never seen it anywhere. But
you see a lot of those kind of companies now changing, that they've gone down, any model-based companies, they're not just using your, once again, it's very hard to say without saying normal looking person.
I'm just not as a man with long flowing locks myself, or as a man without long flowing locks. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
the artwork.
But I would have thought, and this is just for me looking at these ads, you would always have a conditioner for dry scalp, or you would have oh Jesus Christ! I'm trying to even think of another example. I
don't think we're best qualified to talk
about probably
female
not, no.
beauty products here.
Is there only female?
Well, the majority of them, they're looking down the Dove line, and those brands.
Yeah, I've never. Yeah, I don't have an opinion on it, to be honest with you. I suppose. Look, it makes. It does using the term normal in that context is a little bit stupid anyway.
It's that whole idea of this is what a normal person looks like. An average person looks like this. But the thing is, you can't do that anymore because no, they don't. Do you know?
Yeah, but but what they're basically saying is that if you're if you buy this, there is a good chance that it will work for you based on your skin, whatever fucking complexion or whatever the story is that you have, because works for the majority. That's basically what normal means in this context, is it?
We're going back to the whole side of it, marketers would market that and going back to the traditional, they change that in words to get someone to buy it.
You freak, take this, you look normal. God's sake. Now look, I don't have an opinion on it.
Anything else pop up for you there this week?
That's blown my mind now, to be honest with you. Look, the main one obviously is Google, and they came out last week where they basically said that they are going to no longer sell ads using personally identifiable information from web browsers. Google already announced that its Chrome browser would phase out support for third-party cookies by 2022. And now, and this is a direct quote from their Director of Product Management, David Temkin, and he basically said that we're making explicit that once third-party cookies are phased out, we will not build alternative identifiers to track individuals as they browse across the web, nor will we use them in our products. And I suppose this is going along the whole lines of Google's kind of privacy preserving stuff. I think that they are coming
but to
under...
me, from like, right, okay, you would be down more the advertising route than I would in terms of that, but is that not their whole business model just out the window?
So it is unclear what the alternative products are going to be. However, what I would predict based on what I've read about it, what I've heard other people say about it, is happening here is that Google are basically taking the data that would have previously been accessed by e-commerce sites themselves. They will house all of that data themselves, and therefore Google will have more control over that whole advertising market effectively, because the cookies are associated with third-party cookies basically. So it allows websites to, it allows you as the website owner to track other people and what their behavior is on your website, and then use Google's product to do away with that. I would presume that this is a response to the calls in the United States to break up the big tech companies because of privacy surveillance concerns, and they are being seen to be doing something before the hounds come to the door and make them break up effectively. So I think there's an element of kind of a wolf's in sheep's clothing here. Like, they're not going to do away with their data business model. Their whole business model is based on data.
That's what it is.
So they are
Google
going
follows you across the internet basically.
So there is going to be some mechanism there whereby Google maintains more control, or at least the same amount of control over that ad market, and it takes some of the data power away from your local businesses, your SMEs, your independent retailers basically, and therefore forcing people to use things like Google Merchant, for example. So like, it's unclear what the products that they're developing are going to be, or what that ecosystem is going to look like.
They'd want to tell people quick, otherwise a lot of digital marketing experts are going to be shitting themselves out.
Well, that's
we're going to have to learn now.
Well, that's the other thing, because on top of that, and there is obviously this war with big tech, between the big tech companies going on at the moment, but Apple have also brought in their new kind of opt-in requirement for users of iOS 14 devices, which basically is a stake to the heart of Facebook's ad model, effectively. Because now, if you, like with Facebook, if you put your Facebook pixel in the back of someone's website, you could track where they were in terms of adding something to cart or whatever the story is. From my reading of this policy, brands are no longer going to be able to do that. So you're not going to be able to create lookalike audiences, not going to be able to create custom audiences, not really going to be able to retarget people based on where they are on your kind of funnel, shall we say. So like, I mean, Tim Cook is kicking the shit out of Mark Zuckerberg. Like, and Apple have been doing this for years. They've been trying to ladder themselves as, we provide a product, we provide a luxury brand, we do not buy or sell or use consumers' data to generate revenue. It's not part of our model. We're trustworthy. Look at us. Picture Tim Cook with a halo around his head. And then you have basically Mark Zuckerberg, who they paint as Satan reincarnate, who robs all of your data and lets brands like Wish just sell things to you. Do you know what came up in Wish? And my a gun.
Did it?
Wish were trying to sell me a gun.
Did you go for it?
No, I didn't go for it. No,
See how far you get.
With Brexit, I didn't want to pay the import tax. But no, look, I think the whole digital marketing space is going to be pretty transformed over the next while. I think Google are going to have to come up with something different. I don't think it's going to be, like, it will have to be of benefit to marketers in some way, right?
But I can't see the big push that's gone down in terms of pay to play. Like, I can't see that being reversed to push to organic. Like, there'll have to be some sort of a new ad model.
It's not going to be a push to organic, but what I keep on saying and the strategy that I would say is the best strategy for people, don't mind your pay to play or your organic or your algorithms and stuff like that, right? Your algorithm, the algorithm that's on Twitter, Facebook, is what determines what content is put in front of the user. If your content is good enough, whereby someone is going to actively search for that content and find it off the fact of that content is good, then it doesn't matter what the hell the algorithm is, because they are going to search for your content. Therefore, it nullifies the ad model, it nullifies your organ. Now, that is extremely difficult to do in a world where you're competing with your Joe Rogans and all the rest. But like, I mean, it would be, typically speaking, if I'm browsing through YouTube, it's just a binge browse, right? I'm just looking at things as they pop up.
Going down the rabbit holes, they say.
That being said, I would probably still have 5 to 10 content creators that I would actively seek out, and I would type their name into the search bar, or I would be subscribed to their channel, and I would see what they're actually producing. And that to me is your golden goose if you want a good strategy in terms of building brand, because you're not being afforded the huge amount of costs that you incur with advertising, and at the same time you're not susceptible to the algorithm and changing algorithms and stuff like that. That being said, like, it's easy to do that if you're like an SME brand, you've got a bit of budget and stuff like that. Like, I mean, if you're in that ecosystem of competing, like I gave you the stat earlier on that I think 90% of podcasts 10% of podcasts have about 90% of the listeners or something like that. We're not there yet.
We're getting there.
But like, ultimately, that's the ecosystem that you're existing in. I would use, and I hate Facebook, but as a marketer and as a consultant, I would use them religiously. It's what I use to reach, and it works. It really, really does work. Google less so, I would say. I think it's more effective in terms of kind of a high conversion rate, but you reach less people, so there's less chance of that really big blast, shall we say, in terms of increased revenue, but it is more effective, and it's less risk intense, I would say. But the fact that these two companies are now going to have to change their ad model is very, very interesting. And beyond that, then, what I also think is quite interesting is we've always given the example of Apple and them imposing their dominance in the marketplace. If you type in music into your app store, Spotify doesn't show up number one, obviously. In fact, I don't even think it appears in the top 5, despite the fact that it is the number 1 music streaming platform in the world. And that's because Google own the channel that you're searching for that for. In the same way that Facebook is entirely reliant on Google to promote their Facebook platform and how people use it and the privacy around that and the terms that they have in terms of if someone is going to use your app via download on our store, what rules that app has to play by. So there is a huge amount of dominance again. Like, I mean, in one way, like your likes of your Apple and your Google are kind of saying, oh no, don't break us up, please, look, we're starting to behave ourselves. Whereas in a way, it also shows the dominance that these companies have and how they are very, very impactful on the ecosystem. Because like this change with Apple is going to impact every marketer in the world. Like I was looking at it the other day because I'm looking to build a couple of strategies with a couple of my clients at the moment, and I'm obviously teaching students in terms of what to look out for in the future, and I'm kind of scratching my head going, what way is this going to go? Like, you know, it's unknown.
By the time they come out of college in 4 years time, it's going to be totally different.
Yeah, exactly. Entirely.
So look, speaking of that, as soon as we kind of get more over the next couple of weeks, we'll bring it into each episode. But I think we'll leave it there for this week. Once again, thanks very much for listening. You can follow us across social media, the usuals, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and we'll see you next week.
Talk to you next week.